At our final HR hearing, my manager's lawyer laughed. "Enjoy your new life. You'll never work in tech again." My manager smirked and said, "You should have been more obedient." The HR director turned to me and asked, "Any final statement?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I'd like to submit this." When they read the file, their faces went pale. 3 years ago, I joined a tech startup as a senior engineer. The company was hemorrhaging money, desperate for a breakthrough product. That's when I started working on a real-time data synchronization algorithm that could handle enterprise-level traffic without the usual lag issues. I worked alone mostly. Late nights, weekends, 80-hour weeks became normal. My girlfriend left me because I was married to my laptop. I missed my dad's 60th birthday. I basically lived in that office for 14 months straight. My manager would pop in occasionally, ask how things were going, nod like he understood, then disappear. He was a sales guy who'd been promoted to engineering lead, despite never writing a single line of code in his life. When I finally cracked it, when the algorithm actually worked flawlessly in testing, my manager was the first person I showed. He stared at my screen for maybe 30 seconds, then said, "This is exactly what we needed. Great work." 2 weeks later, he presented his revolutionary algorithm to the board. His name, his slides, his vision. I sat in the back of that conference room watching him take credit for 14 months of my life. I pulled him aside afterward. "That's my work," I said quietly. He put his hand on my shoulder and smiled. "We're a team here. Don't be so territorial." I went to HR the next day, showed them my commit history, my documentation, everything. The HR representative nodded sympathetically and said she'd look into it. Nothing happened. When the algorithm launched 4 months later, the company made $12 million in Q1. My manager got promoted to VP of engineering with an $85,000 raise. I got a $2,000 bonus and a coffee mug that said team player. The patent application went through with his name listed as the primary inventor. My name wasn't on it at all. I complained to HR again. This time her tone changed. "You need to think carefully about your future here. He's a valued leader, and we don't appreciate employees undermining management." That's when I knew they weren't going to help me. So I started building my own case. I documented everything. Every GitHub commit with timestamps. Every email where my manager asked me to explain his algorithm to investors because he genuinely didn't understand how it worked. Every Slack message where he admitted he couldn't code. Then I did something I'd been afraid to do. I filed my own provisional patent 6 months before the company filed theirs. Cost me $3,200 I didn't have, but I got it notarized, dated, and submitted to the patent office. 3 months later, my manager called me into his office with HR present. "We're letting you go," he said flatly. "Attitude problems. You're difficult to work with. Resistant to feedback. Not a culture fit." I was stunned. "You're firing me for the algorithm I built? You didn't build anything," he said coldly. "You were part of a team effort, and now you're no longer part of this team." That's when they scheduled the final HR hearing. Apparently that's what they call it when they're documenting your termination to avoid lawsuits. My manager brought his lawyer, some smug guy in a $4,000 suit who clearly enjoyed intimidating people. They spent 20 minutes listing my performance issues, all fabricated, all designed to make sure I left with nothing. The lawyer leaned back and delivered his line with a grin. "Enjoy your new life. You'll never work in tech again." My manager couldn't resist twisting the knife. "You should have been more obedient." The HR director, a different person this time, looked at me with dead eyes. "Any final statement before we conclude?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. "Yes, I'd like to submit this." I slid it across the table. Inside was everything. 37 months of GitHub commits with my username. Email chains where my manager begged me to explain the algorithm to clients because he couldn't answer their technical questions. Text screenshots from his personal phone where he admitted to his friend, "I have no idea how this thing actually works, but everyone thinks I'm a genius." And the final page, my provisional patent filing, dated 6 months before the company's application. Notarized. Official. The lawyer's grin disappeared. My manager went ghost white. Even the HR director's expression cracked. "I've already sent copies to the patent office," I said calmly, "and to TechCrunch. They're running the story tomorrow morning." The room went silent. My manager tried to speak, but nothing came out. The HR director closed the folder. "This meeting is over. You two, my office, now." I walked out of that building knowing I'd just detonated my entire career, but I didn't care anymore. My manager was fired that same afternoon. The board called an emergency meeting. The company's lawyers reached out within 48 hours with a settlement offer. $340,000, my name restored on the patent, and a written apology. I took it. Last I heard, he's working at a car dealership now. His lawyer stopped practicing employment law. And me? I'm CTO at a competitor now, making twice what they ever paid me.